You are running 100 miles per hour with a multi-million dollars idea in your head. But your team is stuck at mile 1, staring at a blank page of unclear roadmap. If deadline keep getting pushed back, you keep getting misunderstood. Your vision keep getting misunderstood. And you start to wonder, are you the bottleneck? Then it's time for us to talk. The problem isn't your ambition. It's the missing bridge between your brilliant ideas in your head and the rest of your business. Listen up for the rest of the episode.
Healthcare entrepreneurs, are you ready to rewrite the rules for your business so you can have more time off, a great team, and more income while creating a positive social impact? Then you are in the right place. Welcome to The Provider's Edge. I'm your host, Sabrina Runbeck. I'm a provider, an international peak performance keynote speaker, and a best-selling author. Let's open the gateway to profitability for you today. My guests and I help healthcare entrepreneurs and startup founders like you break through barriers so you can control your business, control your life, and control your future. This is your defining moment to be a disruptor in healthcare. Are you one of the founders or leaders in your organization that feels like when you set a deadline, it always pushed back? And then you think to yourself, is it that I'm not clear? Perhaps people just not do their job right? Or why can't I have better help around me? And sometimes those are the good questions to ask. But what we tend to see is the true missing factor is that many people who are visionary have a visionary plan. What that means is overall, what they see is A to Z. And then they're talking to people who are the doers, the implementers. They need to know the very granular end and the how of the A to B to C to D and all the little dots that actually connect to each other. If they don't see that, they don't know how to act. Then instead of going from the visionary to the doer, we have people in the middle, the people who actually help us to plan, to strategize. And when these people hearing here, and they understand how much work is to be done down here, then they're like, I'm actually not getting enough information from you, boss. I need to give me more things. There's this specific question I have, but you also know your frustration, if you're a true planner and strategist, is that the visionaries don't really have those answers. They just have something more in their head they want to get out there. So then the constant frustration of how do you truly align what people wanted to achieve and how to get there takes so much more time. And when you see progress and things get to a point of, wait a second, actually we skip step. If we skipped those steps, we won't actually get to where we need to go. Let's course correct. And then your visionary is going to feel the struggle of, oh my God, why do we have even to discuss this? We thought we'd done it before. So we have Shawna today here with us, who is our intuitive alignment expert in thinking about why are we keeping having these patterns? What are the true components of people that you need to have on your team and knowing the differences, how to talk to them. So Shawna, I would love for you to dive a little bit deeper into this situation. How come we're seeing so often from founders talking to their co-founders, talking to their executive, talking to their team, and then sometimes they feel like, oh, you're out of bounds, or things just not moving, and everyone becomes super frustrated.
Yeah, this is something I actually call the strategy plague because you're having this miscommunication between how people are defining things. And so this is really a vocabulary issue and a perspective issue combined. So it's important to first classify, what level of person are you talking to? Are you talking to a high level visionary? Are you talking to that intermediary that can sit in both high level vision and execute well? Or are you talking to the executors or the doers? Because these are three different mindsets and perspectives. And that's going to help us understand which definition of strategy or plan we're operating from. And I can't even tell you how many times we've come across in the workplace where a team thinks they're operating from a business strategy. And really, what they have is a plan. They know what steps they need to take to execute an idea, but they're actually missing the vision and the mission, which would be what the big strategy would entail. What's that very long term goal that they're working towards? They might know how to get to X point in their journey, but that's really as far as they've thought. If that's what you have, then you have the plan. You don't have the strategy. And we also call it capital S strategy from one of my mentors, or lowercase s strategy, because there's two different seats of strategy as well. You have the one strategy, capital S strategy, is a big overarching, we really want to create this impact and we're part of this vision and we're part of this bigger mission. And the lowercase s strategy is, here's how we're going to market. Here's our strategy of our overall, we're going to use podcasts to invite them onto a call, and, like those baby steps. And then the capital P plan is that business plan. This entails some of your strategy, all of those strategy points, as well as addressing the other SWOT analysis areas. And how are you going to operate your daily business? How are you going to market your business? But also, what impact are you looking to create? And then the lowercase p plan would be more of those execution plans. And that's what your doers and your executors are looking for. What do I need to do in the next 90 days? And so when you're looking at it, you can also see that there are time frames associated with each of these segments as well. And when you're trying to take a visionary and execute something in the next 90 days, there are challenges that come from that, because the concept of time for that capital S big vision person is much more, it's stretched out. So they think, oh, I've had this idea. I have a team. It's Monday morning. I've got this great idea. We're going to get it done by Friday. And everyone is like, I've already booked everything for my tasks and my schedule this week. And now I have to redo all of my careful prioritization that I did. And there isn't space for this beautiful vision you have had last minute that we should really probably work for 3 months on, And then we're either crunching the deadline or we're executing in a fallacy, and it just doesn't look as good as the visionary wanted it to. So it's important to understand your timelines, as well as who are you talking to, what level do they need, and how key those intermediary strategists and executors are, because they can take that vision and they can go to the executors and say, these are your next action steps. And they can go back to the visionary and extract, hey, I need these specific questions answered. And here's a format that you can put that into. Because a lot of times they'll go back and they'll say, we need this information. And the strategist is like, I just give you a 90-minute meeting about that information. And yet nobody has any idea what to do next. And that's because they didn't give that lower level strategy, execution plan. And they need that person to step in and say, I feel like if you could just give us, this, and there, I've worked with several of them. I'm a high level visionary, so I feel this pain point strongly myself. But when somebody can extract it from my mind and say, actually, what I need looks like this, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now that I have a format, let me give you those details, because before I don't know where to narrow in my microscope, right?
Well, you also have people who don't want to narrow in, right? And they feel like you're the one who's restricting them from creating impact. because they're not seeing that without a structure, you're running the ship off the cliff. And then we see that in the sense of, for example, one of the precision medicine company that we work with, that CEO is totally an emotional communicator. So he elaborate on more story, more mission, more this. And it's the story after story actually repeat itself because there's also an underlying fear that people don't understand him. So he constantly going back to it. But because it's not tangible, right? So when we talk about big strategy, it's that visionary, this feel, this movement, this thing. But when this thing is not common language enough, people get confused on what you're trying to promote, or they understand the overall feel of things, but it's not tangible for them to put something, touch and feel like, okay, now I understand what to do, right? So that's the translation part. That's what I believe, Shawna, you're mentioning is the language part is when you're so high level, you don't have someone that translate what this means to something in detail. So one of the struggle is we have 2-hour calls, right? Where most of the meeting, he's the one who's talking, and then we're just trying to figure out what he's trying to say.
If you ever walked out of a meeting thinking, didn't I just say that? You're not alone. Founders and visionaries often have a vivid A to Z picture in their minds, but your team can't act unless you gave them A to B to C with clarity. In this segment, Shawna and I unpack the communication breakdown that sabotages execution, the difference between a true strategy and just a task list, and why visionaries must have an integrator who can bridge their ideas with actionable plans. Because if you're skipping the translator, you're not scaling, you're spinning. And if your founder with an established solution and user base and want to present in front of active investors and decision makers from health systems and organizations, apply to be a contestant on HealthTech Showdown. Go to pulsepointpass.com/contestant or drop me a PM. I'll give you more info. Every month, we give one qualified company an $800 scholarship toward this opportunity. Think you should be in the spotlight? Then make sure that you apply now on the website. And winner of every episode gains $5,000 plus media opportunities besides the deal they then close and the additional investors we will be able to introduce you to. Good luck. All right, let's get back to the rest of our episode.
We had a dedicated agenda for this, and then it was not on agenda at all. So for the rest of us who need to have a structure, because we know it's going to just go into a conversation and feels like we're going back and forth at the same thing, nothing got moved forward, right? So we needed to be able to have these visionary recognize. If you have a goal, if you have an agenda, especially for the rest of your team who actually do the implementation for you, keep the agenda. Eliminate yourself from continuously to get back to the concept of it, but get to the granular. So what does that also mean is me and Shawna also were talking about showing a business plan. And when the business plan is more of a mission statement, a vision statement, and then the only thing that's detailed is this is how we're going to do the program in this way. This is lab testing, whatnot. You've gone from this big mission vision to just couple component that doesn't really quite connect the value and what you do. So then I said, a true business plan has those mission vision, but you also have to have cost prediction, how much, how often you think, how quickly you're going to have client acquisition, what's the return on this, and what could be potentially cost and that you have accumulated, how much funding you have upfront to launch, because most people would not be able to do all equity. And then you have to plan out very detailed go-to-market strategy. right? And what happened on that team is the CMO is actually an implementer type. The plan that she gave me is it's very granular. It's a doer level where we're going to publish 5 blog articles per month. We're going to have so many social media go out. We're going to have so many email lists go out. Those are just tasks. They're not a strategy, right? Strategy means the go-to-market strategy means there are set channels that we have to go to that has a client journey experience that creates the awareness, creates the conversion, creates the delivery, right? So there's different steps of different elements, and that's the overall strategy. So I think that's why it's very difficult for people to say why things take so long. You skip the step. You had the visionary talk to the implementer to say, I need something done. This implementer is like, okay, I can. This is the plan. But that plan does not connect to the specific audience, how we engage with them to get them feel the buy-in and feel the necessity. We're just doing the work, right? And sometimes if we're just doing more of these work, can feel we're moving forward, we're creating momentum, but it's not going to get you the conversion that you want.
Yeah.
Now, what are some
Absolutely.
other
And it's
Go ahead, Shawna.
that's exactly what we see happen time and time again, where that disconnect happens and the implementers will say, oh, okay, I can go ahead and do. And you miss that message, you miss that. And so you end up with a lot happening, but you're not getting the rate of return. Your ROI is not being preserved. And so you see that scenario. And then you have the other scenario where they've delivered something the implementer doesn't know how to take action on. And now wheels are just spinning and deadlines are flying by because no one is sure how to institute the next step. And so it depends on who's on your team and what dynamic you have as to where you seem to get stuck in that cycle. But both are results of the same actual root problem.
Correct. So the example also happening is that for any product service, usually you can have channel partners to add more value because you're serving similar clientele. Now, when you have just channel partner, then you have a debate to say, is that going to be part of my core foundational offer, or this will be an add-on? Most people get really confused on that part. So what happened is the rest of their team is also confused. Is this visionary thinking about all these channel partners as add-ons? If they're add-ons, we should not be putting these information in their core offer. And therefore, you should not also be putting them as the authority in your company. That's very different, right? Who you are is the authority. Who you're actually connected, build all the program into the core thing that you have, those are the authority. Everybody else, what we call them is these ambassadors or influencers. And when you have these ambassadors, the influencer, you also have to have very clarity on how they're engaging with you. Just to say, oh, they're gonna do a guest blog. They are going to share our things with their audience. That's so vague. And if you're vague, then nobody knows what to do, what to expect of them. That lack of clarity will cause them to not do anything at all. And then you feel like, oh, these people are not supportive of me. Instead, they just don't even know how to help you.
Too often, founders confuse movements with momentum. Shawna and I just broke down how execution gets derailed when visionary leaders skip over strategy and land directly into tactics. We talked about what really go-to-market strategy looks like and why having a beautiful detailed plan still won't generate results if it doesn't align with the customer journey. We also dug into how lack of clarity around partnerships and internal roles creates noise, not traction. If you ever looked at your marketing calendar and thought, we're doing all the things, so why isn't anything sticking? You're likely skipping the strategy bridge. If you're a visionary founder leading a company with paying users and post-seed funding, apply to be a speaker on Provider's Edge podcasts. Or if you want to test the strength of your foundation, take the Impact Quotient quiz to see if your team and system are truly set up for growth. Go to impactquotientquiz.com.
And that also creates additional difficulty for the marketing side to say, how do we even showcase our program when there's too many elements and when they don't even know what the core is, right? So that's the challenge, is when people become so granular, asking these visionaries, if you're the type of visionary big S people, when people ask you these follow-up questions, it's not to question your intelligence or why you're doing that. When they ask you why, it's simply getting the clarification so we can connect with the right client and then we can move forward. And the rest of everyone who's on the implementation, the lower level of strategy, can actually do something about it. What are some other examples, Shawna, you've been seeing?
Yeah, and this is definitely an issue that's on the rise as more and more people are seeking collaborative business and marketing opportunities, because we've seen the benefits of working together and sharing that space. And, to speak to some examples, when you're meeting with your team and you're having these conversations, some of the triggers that you can be aware of that you're stuck in this pattern are when you share something and then people are asking you a question and you might feel like they're asking for, like maybe you feel like they're not understanding the vision or the mission. I would actually doubt that in your mind. I would question that for yourself and say, I feel like they're asking me the same thing I just answered. So this is my flag. Like, I'm throwing the red flag. Let me think about this differently, because what they're asking for is not like you're wanting to share the why again. Oh, well, here's why we're doing this. We're going to talk to these kinds of people. That's not what they're asking for. They're asking for clarity around maybe some of the what steps, maybe some of the how steps. They actually need to move into, how do you want this done? What does this look like for you in your mind as you're watching your customer go through this journey? I need some of these steps filled in. There's blanks here. So as the visionary who has probably gone through your life being misunderstood, as most visionaries do, I want you to recognize when you feel like you're repeating yourself, call that into question and say, maybe they're not misunderstanding my vision right now. Maybe they need something different from me. And to step back and say, can you ask that question differently? Can you give me an example of what you need from me to better understand this? And just kind of switch up that dialogue. And the other thing is to address that trigger within you and to say, as a visionary, I probably have a wound about feeling misunderstood, and to address that in your mindset work with your personal coach, with your healer, whoever you're working with. Talk to them about this, address the misunderstood root, where it might be coming from, how you can overcome that in your life, so that when you're showing up in your meetings, you're not bringing that baggage into that, so that you can stop and listen to your team and say, okay, wait, it's not that I'm being misunderstood. It's that maybe I'm not sharing the right information. Maybe I'm not sharing it in the right way, and create more of that open dialogue of, tell me what you're hearing, and that active listening to get better results with how they need to see the next steps that they're really asking for from you.
Yeah, it's the one way is about self-awareness and also honor that awareness. it's okay to feel misunderstood. You can work through this. And especially, how can we not let the baggage of what was determine where we are going? What's been helping us to get us thus far needed to be celebrated and supported. At the same time, we have to reflect on we could have gone so much further. What was it that I could have done even better in the people that I have? Or perhaps I needed to be away from certain people. And same thing in the things that I do. What else can I eliminate so I'm really double down and to have 10 times effect, right? There's a book called 10 times is easier than 2 times. Specifically, it's about how do we recognize what's truly important, not just thinking, oh, I just don't have time because I need to do more. And recently we had a conversation with someone who we work with, brilliant, passionate, but 100 miles per hour, how she talks, how she do things. And when we asked her, when was the last time you even took a break? There was that 10-second pause of cannot recall. And for people who, when we ask, so what do you do to have fun? The answer, if it come back very generic, like, oh, I like to hike, I like to travel, but I really like to build business. That again is no longer a hobby. If work is your hobby, then you don't really truly have a life because everything you are is identified by who you are as a hyperachiever. So that's actually one of the 10 sabotaging tendency we have in how we see through performance. And that's based on the study of positive intelligence in Stanford. One of the 5 things we look at in creating the most effective leader, most resilient team, and then most sustainable company. So as we're wrapping up, Shawna gave us some suggestions of when people start identifying themselves as this visionary, they can think really high level. What do they need to pay attention to make sure everybody else actually understood them or they can actually communicate things so it's not, oh, we didn't hit this deadline, let's push back another week.
Yeah. So, a few things. Number one is in the human capital area, which is my passion area. Do you have the right people on your team? A lot of times, when a visionary is, especially if they're starting out or they're in early stages, it's really them. And then they've hired people to do the simple tasks because they just needed those off their plate. And so you have to make sure, do you have an intermediary who can be in the high level vision with you, completely understand, and even turn around and educate that vision to other team members? Or do you just have executors? Because a lot of people will try to move forward with a team of executors and then they become a full-time manager and they're really just following up on people's tasks. So, number one, make sure you've got the right people on the team. The most important first person that the first 2 and most important roles to hire for are someone who can intermediate between high level vision and getting stuff done. And that's usually a high level executive assistant or an integrator. And then the second person can be a doer of something that's really big, and it would just take a lot off your plate to have somebody executing these tasks. That's fine. But you really want to have that intermediary. So first of all, have the right team. Make sure that these people can actually do the thing you really want them to do. And the second is, do not rely on in the meeting feedback. When you say, does this make sense? Do you understand? If you're saying that a lot, that's a red flag too, because there should be an active conversation happening in a meeting. It should not be a presentation of your vision every time you get in the meeting. So, and if you're like, well, they said they understood, And I'll tell you, it really does make sense for them in that moment when they're sitting in your vision for you. And then as soon as they leave the container of your meeting, they step into the world and they look at their tasks and they're like, wait, what am I supposed to do next? And this is a very real disconnect that is just as frustrating for them as it is for you. So you can have a meeting rubric where you test their comprehension at the end if you want them to fill out a quick form so you can make sure the meeting was effective. But really, it's going to be very clear for you if they have taken action within the next 48 hours on the assigned tasks, then it is clear for them. If they have not, then there is a disconnect. They didn't hear it in the way that they needed to then do it. And so, and there might be something that's stopping that in the middle. Maybe they don't have the right tool. Maybe there isn't the right system. Maybe they didn't have clarity. There's something standing in the way. So not allowing things to go past that lag of 2 to 3 days with no action, without you having the thing that you asked for. So following up with that compassionate, I've noticed there's silence, there's crickets. To me, that says you might not have what you need. Let's talk about this or get more clarity, or tell me how you would like to see this so that we can keep moving forward.
Yeah, that definitely is the component. And also you have to keep in mind, culture does play into this. Nowadays, it's all about virtual assistant, and some virtual assistant is based in the US, some are South America, Asia, and whatnot. And some of the culture is naturally just like, yes, ma'am, sure, I got this. But when they say I got this, or yes, ma'am, or a thumb up, it's not that they understood. They are simply saying, I received the information. So you have to understand how that person actually trying to communicate with you. So the feedback loop is very important. So something that I make my assistant do every morning is give me your top 3 vital priorities for the day. Then I can help them to either rearrange the priority list or saying, actually, let's remove this other things to add on, right? Especially for your doer level. Now, someone who's in that integrator, the high level chief of staff, executive assistant level, they should be able to help you to think. Means when things come to you, they're the gatekeepers of the nonsenses that should already be dealt with, not taking time away from you. What we see in founders is that when they hire really bad chief of staff or executive assistant, that person is not truly understand what they meant to say in an email, and they made us something so dramatic, urgent request, when it's just simply, do you mind giving us another alternative for scheduling, right? And that puts the tone and stress on you as a CEO have to quickly fix that. And you know you have the ability to, but now it distracted you from what you meant to do. And that's why people feel like they have no time management skill. And other thing that we do when it comes to hiring is, yes, we have the job description, the typical thing, but other elements we add in there is what success look like for you for the next 90 days. How would you feel when you are winning, right? What does it feel like if you're really winning in this role? And because we already customized of how this role is supposed to be to fit the rest of the team, right? So we identify culture first and then create a role. Then last but not least, very critical to put in there is the leader's profile. So we have in there, Sabrina tend to be A, B, C, D, E, and how she received information is this, and how you will feel greatly supporting the company and your leader as Sabrina is this way. So now they become very understanding in, can they do that? Is that something they can do before they take this job? And if they understand you so well and everything is very clearly defined, then you are being supported much more easier. Then you have to train that person over and over again. and spend more time and feel like you don't even have time to train that person. So think about these additional things when you start to hire that next CFO, the next COO, or someone who's truly going to help you to push forward with your business.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, this topic is big. We can talk for a long time, and we would love to hear from you guys. What are some of the critical elements that when you have to consider when you're communicating with your team that work really well for you, as well as when you're hiring, besides the things that we've mentioned about how to have the best 90-day success, making sure they know how they're going to feel they're winning so they can keep self-motivated, and how they're going to support you. What other elements you typically add in there when you're doing a hiring to ensure this is the right people for you? Whether you're listening to this or watching this, we would love for you to comment below, subscribe to our channel, or contact us on LinkedIn. We would love to have a meaningful conversation and helping all of us to move forward in the betterment of healthcare.
Today, Shawna and I talked about why visionary founders struggle with execution and how misalignment between visionary ideas and strategic planning and implementation leads to deadline delays, team confusion, and poor ROI. Here are the 7 key points we discussed. Number 1, visionaries need translators, not just doers. Visionaries often communicate in broad, abstract concepts without a strategic intermediary to translate that vision into granular tasks. Executors end up overwhelmed and misaligned because they have no idea what they have to do. Number 2, most teams mistake a plan for a strategy. Founders confuse plan, tasks, timelines with the true strategy, which are long-term, vision-driven directions. I say this so many times to founders that we work with in detail, that everything you do have to go back to your mission statement. If it's not aligning with that mission statement, almost like a checklist, that is a no. Doesn't matter how good the partnership sounds like. Therefore, a capital S, big strategy, sets the direction. Lowercase s, small strategy, is the plan that handles the steps. Number 3, strategy must include communication formats. Teams need structured format to extract the right information from founders. It's not that visionaries aren't willing to share. It's that they don't know how, and let's guide it. Number 4, unstructured meetings equal spinning wheels. Visionary-led meetings often turn into storytelling loops. Without a structured agenda, the team leaves unsure of next step. Deadlines slip and progress stalls. Number 5, role clarity in team prevents bottlenecks. Hiring only executors forces founder into micromanagement. Every founder needs an integrator, someone who bridges the high-level vision with executable steps. Number 6, clarity prevents marketing and partnership misfires. When offers, partnerships, and campaigns are vague, team stalls. Clear messaging, responsibilities, and role distinctions, like the core team versus influencers, prevents confusion. Number 7, founders' misunderstood wound sabotages growth. Founders who feel constantly misunderstood may resist clarification questions, seeing them as personal, but reframing these questions as alignment tools is essential. Have you ever had to translate a big idea into a clear plan? What helped you bridge the gap between vision and action?
Thank you for listening. Remember, the positive change we're seeking starts right here with me and you. If you are a fan of the show, or if you are just having struggles or success that you're either experienced in the past or are experiencing now in the healthcare industry, these matter to all of us. I want to hear from you. Visit sabrinarunbeck.com/connect and send me a direct message. Talk soon!